Serving their community is who they are because they love where they live. REMAX 3D Real Estate is proud to bring you Heart of Greenville, a video series dedicated to celebrating all the wonderfully great things about Greenville, Texas. On every episode, Tanisha Denny will share Greenville's story through the stories of people who call Greenville home. This is Heart of Greenville.
Thank you so much for watching Heart of Greenville. I asked Brent to come on the show because he is a person who is highly involved in our community, not only from his city council position, but also from his title company to his law firm. But also, I want you to hear his heart with his family, where he has 3 children that they adopted, along with their 2 other children. He has a lot of great stories to share with you, and I can't wait for you to hear it. Here's my conversation with Brent. Hey y'all, I'm Tanisha Denny, your host of Heart of Greenville, and today we're sitting down at the landmark on Lee Street on the 3rd floor called The Landing. And our guest today is Mr. Brent Money. How are you today, Brent?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Tanisha.
Thank you so much for agreeing to come on the show.
Sure. Happy to do it.
You're like, I asked you if you wanted to come on a show, and you're like, sure, okay, I'll go. And so we're gonna kick this off with all kinds of stories, and I want people to get to know you. So that's the purpose of our show for Heart of Greenville, is people getting to see you behind the scenes. They know you as being on city council. They know you for money law firm. They know you for your title company and all these different areas. But a lot of times people don't actually get to know you as a person. So before we hit record, we talked about how we actually have known each other since birth, basically.
Yeah,
because
our
whole life. So our parents were in Sunday school class together, and so we've kind of grown up knowing each other all of our lives. So I'm really honored to get to sit down with you today. And I know a lot of your story, but I don't know all of your story. But I want people to get to know who Brent Money is. So let's talk about this. You've been in Greenville all of your life. What generation are you?
I'm the 6th generation Money in Greenville. And so I don't know how many greats, but they moved here from like Georgia in the 1871, I think.
Oh, wow. That is really cool.
Yeah.
Have you done the research? I guess you went back to try to find that.
Only a little bit at the Greenville Library. They have a good, actually I was doing some research for my son for a school project on somebody completely different. And I was like, well, I wonder what they have on the Money family around here, and found a few things. So if you've been around Greenville for a while and you haven't been to the library, they have a great genealogy thing, and maybe one day if I ever retire, I'll sit down and try to do a little more research.
Retirement, what is that, Brent?
I don't know.
That seems like it's so far away.
Yeah.
We have so much to do between here and there.
Yeah.
So you have your family. Did you leave and go away for college? What did you do?
I went to Oklahoma Baptist for a couple of years, and then graduated at Texas A&M Commerce, and married my high school sweetheart from Greenville Christian School, where we both graduated. And but we've pretty much lived here, other than a few months in Oklahoma at school. I've lived here my whole life.
What made you guys choose to stay here?
That's I don't know that we did choose. So when I first got out of law school, I drove from here to SMU Law School throughout because my wife worked at the hospital here as a nurse, and we had little babies. And so it was just easier with childcare and all that to commute. But the thought was, well, when I get a job over in Dallas, we'll just move. And we started looking into that, but about about the time that we were looking at houses and things in Dallas to move over there, Judge Andy Bench, which he wasn't a judge back then, but he had just gotten elected. And he said, hey, I know you've thought about maybe should you practice here, practice in Dallas. If you ever want to come to Greenville, now's probably a good time because I'm leaving and I have all these clients I've got to give to somebody. And so he kind of introduced me to Bob Scott, who I knew, but we didn't know each other well. But and so Bob kind of brought me under his wing to help with a lot of Andy's cases, and that's how. And so it was kind of like. I guess what I tell people, and this is really the truth, is although I loved my job in Dallas and I loved the firm and the people I was working with, I realized that my first day in Greenville with my own practice, I would have more freedom and more control of my life than I ever would, no matter how successful I was in Dallas. And just the ability to work in my hometown with people that I knew, people that I grew up with, I live a half mile from where I work. It's just, that's what I wanted. That's the life that I wanted. So,
what inspired you to go into law?
Man, I think that looking back now, I should have always wanted to be a lawyer. I was the kind of guy in class that always argued with the teacher about everything that I got wrong on the test. I was never like the best grades in the class. But if I got a 97 and I missed 3 points on something, I wanted her to know this is why I had that answer, and this is why it's right, and the question was unfair or wrong or whatever. And I know if any of my teachers would watch this, they would say, yes, that was him. Or any of my classmates that would have been rolling their eyes during class, like, just move on, it's 3 points. So that was always me. I always loved law shows, TV shows and things like that. But for some reason, I always thought I wanted to be a doctor. So from about the time I was in 6th grade, and that's why I went to Oklahoma Baptist. They had a great pre-med program. So I went there, finished up at Texas A&M Commerce, took the MCATs, and I got to the point where I had to actually write an essay on why I wanted to be a doctor for all the schools that were, and I was like, I don't have 4 pages on that. Like, I don't, I just, like, it's all I've ever wanted to do, but I didn't know why, and I kind of had a personal kind of crisis. Like, I don't know, what if that's not what I wanted to do? And during the course of that, at some point, I actually went to lunch with Andy Bench, who's a second cousin of mine, and a guy that I looked up to when I was growing up, and he was a practicing attorney, and he said, have you ever thought about being a lawyer? And I was like, no. Because, I mean, I love law and order, but I know I don't want to do criminal law, and I don't want to be one of those people with the daytime ads on TV.
Right.
And he's like, no, let me tell you what I do. And he kind of walked through what a civil lawyer, the probate process, and, just helping people with their business. And I was like, well, that sounds fun, like problem solving. I can do that. That's why I thought I wanted to be a doctor, is kind of to help people and figure out what their problem is and help fix it. And so from there, I started looking into it more, and I was like, yes, this is what I should have always been wanting to do. And it's just been a great choice. I think it's just one of those things that God had a plan for me in my life, and I needed to have gone through the pre-med process. It helped me become a good student. It helped me to kind of hone my analytical skills a little bit in a way that if I had done what most pre-law people did and taken poli-sci or something else like that. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I would not have challenged myself the way that I needed to. And so it all worked out according to God's plan in the end.
That is so cool. Andy played a big role a couple
times.
He
did. And it was, anyway, he's a guy that, like I said, we grew up second cousins. And he's quite a bit older than me. I'll say that, just in case he's watching.
You're going to get him. It's going to get you for that.
But I always looked up to him as a kid. And so him just being, a few years ahead of me in this law, he was able to kind of help a little bit.
What was it like going through law school? You and Heidi were married at that point, right? So what was that like? I mean, law school takes tremendous studying and dedication.
Yeah, it was a lot better for me than her, to be honest. She was working full-time at Hunt Regional, which was Presbyterian back then. But she was working full-time as an RN in the ICU and ER, doing all of that hard work. And my oldest son was born the first day of the second semester of law school. So, in other words, she was very pregnant the first semester, very newborn baby the whole second semester, and I was not around much. I would come home every night, but it was like, I'd get home at dark, I'd go to sleep, I'd wake up, I'd go back. And I was not as attentive of a father as I probably should have been, or a husband then. It wasn't contentious.
You had a plan.
But it was like,
for that
hey,
season.
we're committing to this. I need to get through this. Once I get through this, we'll have a better life. And it's worked out. But I think, looking back, I wish that I had probably savored those moments a little bit more. and maybe helped her a little bit more with the nighttime feedings and the crying and all that. And I probably did a little more than she remembers and a little less than I remember of help of helping back then. But yeah, she kept it going, and it was hard work. I was already also working part-time over in Dallas, trying to provide a little bit of money. So I was teaching test prep classes, LSAT and MCAT classes for Kaplan. So, I was probably doing 15 to 20 hours a week of that on top of school, on top of studying, on top of being a husband and father and commuting 10 to 12 hours a week, so it was difficult, but it was, I knew it was short term. And my dad always said, I could stand on my head for 3 months, who cares?
Right.
I'll if I have to, I can do it. And so that's kind of the way I grew up, is like, if it's short term, if I can see hope at the end of this, I'll do whatever I have to do to get through it.
Yeah, that there's light at the end of that tunnel.
Yeah.
That's not for forever.
Yeah.
And what a great investment that was. I mean, now fast forward, and it's held a great career path for you and your family, and you've made it highly successful. So,
it's God has just blessed more than I ever hoped or expected, and so we knew it would afford us a better life. We didn't know it would be as good as it has been. It's really been great.
I love hearing that. And I love stories like that. And it inspires other people to go live their dreams. I love that you realized, in trying to figure out your why you wanted to be a doctor, you realized that's not what you needed to do. I mean, that was actually a saving grace that you figured that out in that moment, so you didn't keep going, and it led you to your path now.
Right.
So that's super cool.
And once again, I just say that I tell my son or my daughter, I have some little ones too. We can talk about them in a minute, or any people that are just starting out, like, and they want to hear, or we're talking about whatever. And I say, just whatever you're doing, do it to the best of your ability for God's glory. You don't know where that's going to lead. Because everything, I'm not saying I've always done that. I've always strived to do that, but, you don't know what God is preparing for you for later. But whatever it is you're doing right now is probably not the same thing you're going to be doing 5 years from now or 10 years from now, especially if you're, in your teens or 20s. You are building a character, you're building a work ethic, you're building a framework of who you are, and you don't know what God's going to do to you. I didn't have any idea that this was what I would be doing, even into my 20s. So.
Right. Well, and we're only in our 40s. Who knows what God has for us between now and 50 and 60 and beyond. Yeah. What was it like opening your own law firm?
A little scary and pretty exciting. I think I'd been, like I said, I came here to work with Bob Scott, and then a few months into it, we had way too much work, and so I called a friend of mine from childhood, Daniel Ray, who's a friend of yours as well, and he was doing the same thing that I had been doing, which was living in Greenville, working in Dallas, doing the commute, and so we started talking about, hey, why don't you come here and start working? And so we were partners together for a long time, and then when I went out on my own, I think it wasn't completely starting from scratch, but it was a little bit of a clean slate. And so starting out, the first 3 months, it was just me. I didn't have anybody to answer the phone. I had me and a computer, and that was it.
In Lee Clark's old office.
Yes. And well, actually, when Lee Clark's old office, I bought it, but it needed a lot of renovations. And so I was actually at a friend's office in the industrial park.
Oh, when you first started.
Yeah,
I didn't realize
in
that.
like an industrial building. And I had a little office in there, and they're doing electronics and all this kind of stuff in the back. And so I spent about 3 months there. And then I think the thing that I learned most during that time is when I was part of a firm and I was the city attorney, and I had a lot of stability and security in that. I think I gave God credit for it in my heart and in a lot verbally, like He's put me in a good place to succeed. But when I went out on my own, I realized it doesn't matter how good I am if God doesn't bring me clients to help. And so I really was like, I've got to pray like a farmer prays for rain. Like,
That's right.
it doesn't matter how good of a farmer and you understand the science of the seeds and the fertilizer and all that. If you don't have water, you have nothing. And so I really just started praying for God to bring me the clients that I could help, and that I would be a good steward of whatever he brought to me. And that's been just something that I've kept up now for the, about 7+ years that I've been on my own. And so, or since I went out on my own, I'm not on my own anymore. But I think just the idea of it's real easy to trust God when you're desperate and when you're like, how am I going to pay rent? How am I going to make payroll? But wanting to always say, hey, he's the reason for anything that we have that's good. Mm-hmm. So
he is.
Yeah.
He absolutely is. And he blessed those prayers
yeah.
tremendously. Yeah. So you later on branched out and started your own title company.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Okay. So I don't even, I think the seed was kind of planted in my head when I was buying Lee Clark's office, and I was sitting in a title company, and I was like, there's some nice people around here, and I wonder what they do. And I kind of started paying attention and thinking, okay, this is a way that, I know a lot of lawyers make money. I don't really know how it all works, but I'm kind of curious. And so I started asking some questions and thinking about it. And so about 2016, so about 3 years later, 2.5 to 3 years later, I was like, I need to quit thinking about this and figure it out. I think you and I even during that time had one talk, and I was clearly very interested in it, but I didn't really know what I was doing. And so I had a friend of mine who used to work for me. He graduated from law school a few years after me. And I noticed on his website that he was a fee attorney for a title company. And I was like, I don't know what that is. So I called him, and he kind of explained it to me. But anyway, it was a different way to get into the title business than what I knew of before, and didn't require me to, it didn't require as much upfront cost, I'll just say, to start it. And so I started looking into that, and once again, just the story of how God just put everything right in place. And so about the middle of 2016, I remember actually sitting in my office on a Friday afternoon, not wanting to work, like, okay, I need to do something productive, but I don't want to do any of this stack of things I should be doing. So I'm going to, and so I just said, you know what, I'm going to pick up the phone and call somebody and ask them about this fee attorney thing. And that was on July 31st. And by September 1st, I had 2 employees. We were open for business, and so it was like, okay, that happened in a hurry.
That was
quick.
Exciting.
And made some really great hires that I thought were good hires at the time, but have just continued to be excellent. And
yes.
So
I mean, y'all have done a great job. I mean, we enjoy using your title company, and it's so beautiful the way that you renovated that building. It's just incredible to walk in, and you don't feel like you're in Greenville, Texas. I mean, it's beautiful and nice, and I'm so thankful for it. But it just has its own unique flair. And Heidi did a great job.
Yes,
shout out to Heidi.
Yeah, my wife is the brains and the beauty behind the operation. But and I hope that one day people say that is Greenville, Texas. I envision a time when downtown Greenville is a destination point.
Yes.
Right now it's not even a destination point for enough people in Greenville. And so, but my, the heart of Greenville, my heart for Greenville, the city itself, is in downtown for sure.
Yes. And I mean, what you did with the title company and your law firm, and what Barbara's done with the Texan, and even up here at the landing on the third floor of the old post office building, just, it's so different and cutting edge. And I love seeing that. So it's just going to be one project at a time.
That's right. And what Bob Landon did, and you look at Max American Grill, and, there's a lot of nice things going on at the Uptown Forum. We have, in one sense, a great downtown because we have a big downtown, but also it means that renovations are real isolated.
Right.
It's not like we only have 2 blocks and then, look at these 2 great blocks.
Yes.
It's kind of like we have 2 great blocks, but we have 13 blocks,
Exactly.
so it's kind of all spread out. So I think just as more people look and and just have a vision of how can this building that may not be that pretty, what can I do with that would make it great?
Right.
Like nobody who even knew that this was up here
I know.
above the landmark, you know, but R.W. Holloman and Steve Lawson said, hey, this could be a really cool
Yes.
co-working space. And so...
And I've loved doing our shows here.
Yeah.
It's been great. And every time we come up, there's always someone in this room, you know, using the space for
Yeah.
they're working here instead of at home. And it's just a great place for people to come in and just work.
And so now I walk around downtown or when I'm driving through and I look and I just say, I wonder what that building could be. I wonder what's underneath that facade. I wonder what's
Yes.
behind that plaster or that sheetrock.
just go buy them, Brent. Go
Yeah.
buy them and like just start renovating them one at a time.
I will. I just need money, money and time, and you could do anything.
Exactly.
So, you know, there's no shortage of vision. It's
Right.
capital that is required. And I think what's exciting too is to see, you know, people like Luann that brought back Mary Puddin Hill to
yes.
downtown. And what I'm hoping is that a lot of ladies that come down there to get their Valentine's gifts or their, you know, Christmas gifts or just, you know, something for somebody for an anniversary or a baby shower or whatever, and they look and say, hey, this is a neat little shop. I bet I could do something like this. I want to go talk to my husband and say, we should open a shop downtown. And because I think that will create the momentum to get people to come downtown. And I would say to the people who say, well, why can't our downtown be like, you know, McKinney or Sulphur Springs? I would say it can be. Come spend some money there.
Right.
And just say, go downtown and say, I'm going to find something to spend $100 worth on or $20 or whatever it is, because that is putting money in downtown and it's telling the people who are investing downtown that this is worthwhile.
Yes.
And then other people will say, hey, they've been successful doing this. I can do this. So
we just have to spread the word.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
Keep
Spread
people
the word.
coming and enjoying our activities. And now that things are opening back up, we can start doing activities again
Yeah.
downtown. So let's talk about this. We're on the topic of downtown, but let's talk about what do you, Brent Money, love about Greenville? Let's talk about that for a minute. What are all the things that you love?
it's hard to separate Greenville from just family and friends and church. So I think when I think, you know, at the times in my life that I've thought about leaving Greenville, that's maybe the easiest thing to think about. It's like, what would I miss? And I think Greenville has a lot going for it for the people who are looking to move here. But for the people who are here, I think that what they always say is the people. It's the people. My family is here. My wife is also sixth generation here. So I love, you know, I just love the people here. Things that I think are unique about Greenville, at least, you know, I never knew we had a big, nice, a big historic type downtown until I went to other cities and they didn't have it. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that is pretty neat what we
Yes.
have. And it's maybe not at its full potential yet, but that is a unique thing. One of the things Greenville has that most, you know, cities don't have, and the cities that people think of as destination great places to live or raise a family, is we have a very diverse housing stock. We have houses of every shape, size, era, style, you know, and one of the things like that I live on Park Street, and one of the things I love about Park Street or Stonewall or Washington or any of these kind of historic places is there's no two houses alike, you know, and not even a lot of similarities. It's like I live in the house that looks like this and everybody knows exactly which one you're talking about. And so, you know, these days, most cities aren't built like that. And I'd love to understand a little bit more about how we did, but I guess every home was pretty much custom back then, and some
Right.
people liked the Mediterranean style, and some people liked the Craftsman, and some people got them out of theirs out of a Sears catalog,
Right.
and you know, whatever it was. And I think that it created this just really interesting, diverse, vibrant kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
It really did. Well, let's talk just for a minute.
Sure.
You're on city council. What is that like?
I have like 2 months left and then I'm off.
And then you're off. Okay,
Yeah.
how long have you been on city
I've
council
been
now?
on almost 6 years,
Okay.
and that's the longest you're allowed to serve on city council. We have a It's 3-year terms, and you're only allowed to serve 2, and then you have to go off. And you can come back later if people will elect you back, but it kind of keeps it moving. I think that during my time as city attorney, I learned a lot about how city government works and a lot about hopefully, what makes a good city and kind of having a vision of what we could be and what kinds of things will entice. Really what the government should be doing is providing key infrastructure like streets and water and sewer and police and fire, and then also incentivizing in a lot of different ways private money to invest here and for families to move here and businesses to come here. So create an environment that people say, that's where I want to go and take my family or take my business or whatever. And so what's exciting, especially over the last few years, has been watching some of that come to fruition. And also kind of being in the real estate business, seeing just this influx of people who don't, and I always just wonder, how did you find Greenville? Like what is it?
I know, I ask that question a lot.
And a lot of times it's L3, but a lot of times people say, well, I wanted to be within an hour of Dallas, and I put a compass here, and I did a circle around, and I said, okay, that looks like a nice little town, and we came here and we liked it. Yes. And I was like, wow,
I know, it's really cool.
Yeah, and so I forgot your question. Oh, being on council. So being on council, I think what's interesting is learning how to interact with people on a committee, which I've been on church committees and things like that. But being in a decision-making body with 6 other people that are successful and intelligent, but they have their own perspectives and ideas and plans, and coming from a business where I pretty much call the shots, and then having to be where you have to persuade other people, you have to compromise, you have to lose on things and do it hopefully gracefully and realize that, hey, we're all trying for what's best for the city. We may just disagree with it a little bit. And I think during my time on the council, we've done a really good job of that.
What's been your favorite project that you worked on that you kind of can say, I was a part of that?
Golly, I should have that right off the top of my head, but I don't. I think one thing that I'm excited about that we're doing right now, and it's actually on the ballot for May, is a road reconstruction bond. So that in the time that I've been on council, we have every year increased the investment that we put into street improvements. I don't think that streets are what make people move to a town, but I think streets are usually the chief complaint in a town. Yes. And so they look and say, these streets are terrible, and so people complain a lot about it. And so we have added to the budget each year, and we currently spend on just patching streets and fixing current streets $2 million a year. Wow. And we also have, during the time I'm on council, we've rebuilt most of Stonewall Street. We have rebuilt Wellington Street. I don't remember all of them, but we've done a lot of these projects, and we haven't raised taxes. We've continued to lower taxes, even though we're taking on more debt. And one of the reasons for that is because money is cheap now. Right. Building costs keep going up, but borrowing is pretty affordable right now. Right. So we had the idea of, hey, how about we take that $2 million a year, instead of building over the next 10 years, $2 million each year, that's $20 million. But whatever we're able to get this year is going to be worth is a lot more than what that same $2 million will buy 10 years from now. Right. And so we're proposing a $50 million bond over the next 3 years. We can't rebuild $50 million worth of streets in 1 year. Right. But using that same $2 million, so it shouldn't raise the taxes at all. Right. But it will allow us to do $50 million worth of projects right now, instead of maybe only $30 million worth of projects over the next 10 or 20 years, because of just the prices of everything is going up so much.
And you get to a point you just need to replace the road, like Stonewall. It needed to happen.
It needed to happen.
Thank y'all for doing that.
Sales Street is pretty bad. I had some disagreements about how we did it. This is one of the compromise/lose things, but Sales Street's going to be a lot better once we redo it, and that should be starting here pretty quickly. But I think just the thing that excites me about that, I mean, I know streets and bond packages is not exciting, but it was a way of saying, hey, let's get creative. In the 6 years I've been on council, the costs of a road has more than doubled. And so, okay, but at the same time, interest rates, we can borrow money at 1 or 2%. So if inflation is like 20% in construction and borrowing is 2%, let's take advantage of it and borrow as much as we can right now that we know we're going to have to do. So,
what are you going to do with your time? I don't know that people realize how much time goes into council, like all of your prep work and then the meetings and then all the conversations. I know people just burn up your phone line all the time for different topics. So your life's about to look a little different, Brent.
A little bit different. I'm still involved in Greenville Family Theater and the Park Street Historical Association. I'm still running the law firm and the title, and I still try to be home for dinner every night and not work the weekends and things like that. So I think really the biggest time free up is going to be just pretty much our Tuesday nights have been blocked off. It's only every other Tuesday, but it kind of gets into a rhythm of just, okay, we can't plan anything for a Tuesday night.
Right.
And so just getting that back will be nice.
We touched on this for a second. Talk about your family, because you have your children, but you also have your adoptive children.
Okay, yeah. So we have 2 biological children that we, like I said, we had during law school, and then a few years later, we became foster parents, and we've adopted three children through that program, which has been a really sweet blessing, and a lot of people have helped us. Because it's not for the faint of heart,
right.
But man, it has been so sweet and so, and just, I mean, I would say, man, I didn't know you were going to ask me this, but I would say that there's, every time that I look at those children, it just overwhelms me. In a new special way, because, and I probably talked a lot more about God here than you expected when you got this, but
I love for us to talk about God. You know how I feel about God.
The heart of Greenville, my heart, that's where it is. But when I look at them in particular, I say, it's like we are God's children, not that we were birthed of Him, but because He reckoned it to be so. He just said, "You are mine," and then we are completely His in that moment. Right. So I have 5 children. The way that God put them together in my family is different.
Right.
But they're all my children, and no, they don't have the same DNA as me. They didn't come in the usual way to us, but they are just as much mine, and it's the picture of salvation.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. You get to know love in a totally different way, really in God's way, the way that He loves us. So I've always loved your story. It takes a lot to be foster parents and also adopt. And, I'm glad that God placed that on your hearts and other people's hearts to give those children a place, to have a home. And now you've changed their story for the rest of their lives because of what you and Heidi have given them. So, and I know a lot of people don't know that about you guys, and that, you're so career driven and you do so much in life, but that's the other side of you that people don't always know.
So and it's funny because I don't think of myself as career driven at all. Like I don't. I'm ambitious in a way, but it's not like I work 80 hours a week. I mean, I do when I have to, but I don't want to, and I don't want to often. I'm probably I'm more family driven than anything. I love going home at night. I want to get finished with work so I can go home. I love being at home. And so.
That's awesome. And you balance it all very well.
Sometimes yes, and sometimes no. Yeah.
Well, I've really enjoyed our conversation. I've learned new things that I didn't know, and I've known you all my life.
Yeah.
I like to end the show with asking you a random question.
Oh, okay.
So that you don't get to prep for. And so I need you to pick a number between 1 and 20, and that's going to be your question.
8.
Okay. Why'd you pick the number 8?
8 is my favorite number.
Okay.
It's Troy Aikman's number.
Oh, yes, it was. Yes. Okay, number 8. What is the best compliment you've ever received?
Man, I'm blanking. I don't know.
Was there someone that said something to you when you were opening your law firm or opening your title companies or something on counsel?
There was a time recently when I was with actually some realtors doing some of the ladies from your office and some other people around town, and I spent the evening with one of the guys rode with me to go to the thing into the back, and we didn't know each other. He didn't know me before the title office, and after we spent all evening together, he said, "Man, I really enjoyed that. You're a lot more down to earth than I expected." And in one way, it was kind of like, "Hey, why would you think I'm not down to earth?" But at the same time, I was like, he doesn't know me except for maybe coming to an event at my office, and we had never spent time together. But when he heard more about my story, it was, and so I want to be that. I mean, like I don't think of myself as whatever you think of me, as a business person, career driven, council member. I mean, it's just who I am.
Right.
And I still think of myself the same guy that went to Greenville Christian School and that, mows his own lawn unless I can get my kids to do it, or,
Right.
I'm just me.
Right.
And so I guess some people do think of me differently than that. But I thought that was a nice compliment.
That is, but it's because you're so humble. That's why you don't see yourself like that.
That is a work in progress. I work very hard to be humble, and my wife works very hard to keep me humble. But I think that humility doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not proud of what I've accomplished,
Right.
but that I have a right understanding of my role in that versus God's role in that, and other people in my life that have done that. So I'm grateful. I know that I've achieved a level of success, but I don't ever want to think that that was because of me.
I can completely relate to that.
Yeah.
I understand that. Well, Brent, I appreciate you so much coming on the show. Thank you so much for all that you do for our community, all that you do for our family, your family, all of our real estate family. We enjoy getting to work with you guys, but I've really enjoyed you sharing your heart with us. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
You're welcome.
Thank you for watching Heart of Greenville. This video series, which is designed to celebrate Greenville, Texas, is spearheaded by REMAX 3D Real Estate.